Do you believe that a man once drank his victim's blood, as if quenching his thirst? An ordinary-looking gentleman by day, yet when night fell, he became the vampire who spread terror through Düsseldorf. This is no legend, it is real. The story of Peter Kürten, the killer who cast Germany into an everlasting nightmare. He spread terror across an entire city, left citizens paralyzed with fear, baffled the police, and even today, many mysteries surrounding him remain unsolved. Picture Düsseldorf in the late 1920s, a city seemingly reborn after the shadow of World War I by day. It pulsed with the sound of weaving machines, train whistles, and factory chimneys spewing endless smoke. Beer halls and were filled with chatter and laughter, as people desperately tried to forget the years of hardship. Yet beneath this facade of vibrancy lay suffocation. Germany's economy was in ruins. Unemployment soared, and the bitter humiliation of the Treaty of Versailles lingered like a wound that refused to heal. Citizens worried not only about their daily bread, but also about political unrest and social instability. At night, Düsseldorf became a different city. Dim yellow streetlights could not chase away the heavy darkness. In the maze of narrow alleys, cold mist descended, making every step hurried and cautious. Every sound of footstep echoing on the pavement, the metallic clang of a distant gate sent hearts racing. Whispers spread of disappearances, of mysterious deaths. Rumors fed on fear, growing darker with each retelling. Mothers bolted their doors, warning their children never to go outside after sunset. The police, overwhelmed and exhausted, seemed powerless against crimes with no clues. And within this atmosphere of dread and chaos, few realized that a phantom had already begun to prowl, hiding in plain sight. A man who would soon turn this city into a waking nightmare. His name was Peter Kürten. Peter Kürten was born in 1883 into a poor working-class family in Cologne. But poverty was not the only misery. His home was a living hell. His father, a violent drunkard, beat his wife and children relentlessly. Screams and the sound of lashes became the nightly soundtrack of young Kürten's childhood. He grew up in fear, hatred, and trauma. From a young age, he witnessed scenes no child should ever see. His mother collapsing under beatings, his siblings cowering in terror against the walls. In this atmosphere of constant brutality, Kürten's psyche began to twist. Seeking escape, he turned to the streets. But instead of refuge, he found corruption. Kürten fell in with vagrants and petty criminals, learning theft, deception, and cruelty. He later admitted that his first acts of violence were against stray animals, dogs, cats, and that even then, he felt a strange thrill in inflicting pain. As the years passed, Peter Kürten grew into a man with an almost disarming normality. Tall, neatly dressed, soft-spoken, he carried himself with a politeness that disarmed suspicion. He was not the image of a murderer, and that was his most terrifying disguise. Inside, however, he was a storm waiting to erupt. Childhood trauma, combined with his obsession with violence, had molded him into a man filled with hatred and perversion. In later confessions, Kürten admitted that each time he inflicted pain, he felt more alive than ever. A man with an ordinary face, even a courteous demeanor, but harboring within him an insatiable thirst for blood. That is what made Peter Kürten so terrifyingly unpredictably a vampire in human form. In the spring of 1929, Düsseldorf began to experience strange disturbances. People whispered of nighttime attacks, a young woman struck on the head with a hammer but miraculously survived. A boy who vanished on his way to school and was found days later, his body hidden in the underbrush. At first, the police treated these as isolated incidents, but within months, a relentless wave of horror began. And at its center stood Peter Kürten. He prowled the streets at night, carefully selecting his targets, the vulnerable, the defenseless. He stalked them quietly, waiting for the perfect moment, then struck with knives, scissors, even hammers, tools of cruelty, chosen not for efficiency but for brutality. The murder that first horrified the city was that of 9-year-old Christine Klein. Kürten broke into her home, strangled and stabbed her in her bed. But what shocked investigators most was what he did afterward. He lingered, staring at the corpse, savoring the moment. The next day, when her father was wrongly arrested, Kürten watched from a distance, relishing the destruction he had caused. He did not stop. An 8-year-old girl lured into a meadow, murdered and buried. A young woman stabbed 20 times on a bridge. A homeless man hacked to death in a park. Victims of all ages, both genders, no one was safe. Even more chilling were the reports of Kürten returning to the crime scenes. Witnesses described a strange man loitering near where bodies were found, or lurking outside hospitals as victims were brought in. It was as if Kürten not only killed, but fed on the city's terror. Soon, he escalated his game. He sent anonymous letters to police and newspapers, boasting of his crimes, taunting the authorities. In these letters he called himself the one who cannot be caught, the Phantom of Düsseldorf. Each word drove the knife of fear deeper into the city's heart. Düsseldorf became paralyzed. Footsteps in the fog sent chills down spines. Mothers locked their children indoors. Men carried weapons. Taverns closed early. But vigilance made little difference. No one knew who the killer was, and he could strike anywhere, anytime. Kürten thrived on this chaos. In his later confessions, he admitted that reading newspaper reports of his own murders filled him with a twisted ecstasy, as if he held the entire city in the palm of his hand. What terrified people most was his normality. Neighbors described him as polite, neatly dressed, even helpful. By day, he blended in perfectly. By night, he transformed into a bloodthirsty demon. This duality plunged Düsseldorf into a nightmare with no escape. Any man on the street could be the Vampire of Düsseldorf, and soon, the nickname was no exaggeration. Some survivors reported that he bit them, sucking blood from their wounds, before leaving them in terror. The press erupted. A vampire truly walks among us. By 1930, Düsseldorf was no longer a city of peace. It had become a city of fear, where death lurked around every corner, and Peter Kürten's shadow was the darkest nightmare Germany had ever known at the time. After nearly a year of terror, Düsseldorf could no longer endure the shadow of Peter Kürten. Dozens of murders and brutal assaults had paralyzed the city. Police were under fire for their impotence. Newspapers asked, "Is there another Jack the Ripper living in Germany?" The pressure was unbearable. Every fragment of a clue was pursued, but Kürten was too cunning. He changed his methods, chose victims at random, and played the role of an ordinary citizen searching for work. No one suspected that the Vampire of Düsseldorf lived among them, greeting neighbors politely by day while hunting them by night. Yet the truth began to emerge, not thanks to brilliant detective work, but through his own wife. Peter Kürten was married to August, a woman scarred by a troubled past, shunned by society. To her, Peter was a gentle, caring husband, so different from the monster described in the papers. But cracks began to show. One night in early 1930, Peter returned home, drenched in sweat, hands trembling. In a fevered whisper, he muttered, "I've done something the whole of Germany will remember." August froze, sensing unspeakable horror behind his words. In the days that followed, she noticed the signs: blood-stained clothes hurriedly washed, his mysterious disappearances at night, the gleam in his eyes whenever the papers reported on new murders. Then came the shocking confession. Peter told her outright, "I am the one they are hunting. I am the phantom that haunts this city." August was thrown into turmoil. She teetered between blind loyalty to her husband and the terror of realizing she shared her bed with a monster. Night after night, she lay awake, staring at the man beside her, wondering if he might kill her next. Meanwhile, police were floundering, arresting the wrong men, following dead ends, and then, fate delivered them a chance through August herself. When Peter was away, she went to the police. She brought them what no one else could: his habits, his words, the chilling details only the murderer could know. At first, the officers doubted her, but when her descriptions matched the secret details in their files, they knew they had finally found the key. The curtain was pulled back. The Phantom of Düsseldorf was no ghost, no supernatural demon. He was a man ordinary, married, living in plain sight, and the fragile woman at his side had become the one to bring him down. In the annals of crime, few moments are as bitterly tragic. A wife forced to betray her husband to save a city, and a killer undone by the very trust of the person closest to him. In April 1931, the Düsseldorf courthouse became the center of Germany's attention. Thousands flocked to witness the trial of the so-called Vampire of Düsseldorf. Reporters crowded outside, while inside, every eye was fixed on the thin, neatly dressed man stepping calmly into the dock. Peter Kürten, the man who had terrorized an entire city, did not look like a monster. He appeared composed, polite, even nodding courteously to the judge, as though he were a witness to some minor case. His calmness only deepened the tension. The indictment, hundreds of pages long, listed 9 murders, 7 attempted murders, and dozens of assaults. Each crime was read in excruciating detail, forcing some to avert their eyes. Several women fainted under the weight of horror. When asked to respond, Kürten did not deny a thing. Instead, he confessed clearly, almost proudly. He described each murder, how he chose his victims, and the moment he felt life leaving their bodies. His words froze the courtroom. The most shocking moment came when he admitted he did not kill out of hatred, but out of pleasure. He said, "Each time I drove the knife in, I felt a current surge through me. I felt more alive than ever." The chilling precision and perverse satisfaction in his testimony left the courtroom trembling. Some journalists later wrote it felt like listening to a demon preaching inside a church. The trial stretched for weeks. The defense tried to argue insanity, but psychiatric experts declared Kürten fully sign-aware of every act he committed. This only cemented his fate. On sentencing day, the courtroom overflowed. When the judge pronounced death by guillotine, a ripple of gasps swept the crowd. Kürten remained calm, even smiling faintly. His final words stunned everyone. "I only hope that after my head is severed, I can still hear my own blood gushing. That would be the ultimate pleasure." Those words cut deep into the collective psyche. The trial ended, but the shadow of the Vampire of Düsseldorf would haunt Germany for generations. On July 2, 1931, at Klingelpotz prison in Cologne, Peter Kürten's death sentence was carried out. The news spread across Germany, drawing thousands who gathered outside not in protest, but in anticipation of the end of a nightmare. Inside, the air was suffocating with tension. Guards lined the hallway, standing rigid. Kürten's footsteps echoed slow, steady, eerily calm as though he were walking to an appointment he had long expected. At the guillotine, he showed no tears, no pleas for mercy. Instead, he asked the executioner a chilling question. "After my head is severed, will I be able to hear my own blood gushing? If so, that would be the ultimate pleasure." At 6 a.m. sharp, the blade fell. His head dropped into the basket, closing one of the darkest chapters in German history. But the terror did not end there. His body was taken for autopsy. Doctors hoped to find some anomaly in his brain that could explain his murderous urges. Yet the findings were inconclusive. No lesions, no clear medical explanation. This only deepened the fear. If nothing was physically wrong, then any seemingly ordinary man might conceal a monster within. Later, Kürten's head was preserved for scientific study and eventually displayed at a criminology museum. Visitors stood before the glass case, torn between horror and fascination, staring at the skull of the Vampire of Düsseldorf. A reminder that reality can be more frightening than legend, but the true legacy lived on in memory. For the citizens of Düsseldorf, the darkness lingered. Narrow streets at night, the echo of distant footsteps, all seemed haunted by the thought that a phantom might still be lurking. The case of Peter Kürten left behind haunting questions. Was he born a monster, or made one by a childhood of abuse? How could he live as a polite, ordinary citizen while committing atrocities without remorse? And how many other Kürtens might be hiding behind masks of respectability even now? When the guillotine blade fell, Germany believed the nightmare had ended. But in truth, a new one began, the nightmare of knowing that the darkness of human nature can surface anywhere, at any time. Peter Kürten met the guillotine nearly a century ago, but the true horror is not his death, it is the reminder that darkness can dwell behind the most ordinary of faces. Join me in the next episodes as we continue to unlock forgotten case file stories whose truths still chill us to this day. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can explore the unanswered mysteries together.